When you're investing in residential real estate, it is a good rule of thumb to get a formal, complete home inspection or property inspection performed by a professional. But what if you're in a situation where you just cannot do it? You don't have the opportunity to get one. We're going to talk about what you can do in this video. Hi, I'm Jason with Level Up Investing, and in this video I'm going to talk about the DIY home inspection. Do it yourself. And when would you need to do something like this? Because it's always recommended that you get a home inspection, a formal inspection that you can refer to when you're evaluating the property and when you're negotiating the price. So the instances where you don't get one or cannot get one, some examples, you might be buying a property on auction and you only have time to do a walkthrough of the property yourself and not have a formal eval. Or you are negotiating a property and part of your negotiation is to go without an inspection. That's not recommended. I certainly don't recommend that, but that might be the situation that you're in. Or you just want to get to know the property yourself before you decide to move forward and invest further and pay for a home inspection. You want to get an idea of what you're potentially getting into. So those are all instances where knowing how to do your own home inspection, a DIY home inspection, is important. So there are 7 major components to a DIY home inspection, and I like to think of it as looking at it from the top down. So from the top you have the roof, and not just the roof and the shingles, but also the gutters around the roof, the soffits, all those things. So the roof, then there's the exterior of the property, not just the walls and the exterior of the windows and doors, but also the surrounding area and any additional structures like sheds or garages. So that's the exterior. There's the interior of the property, the walls of the property, and the structures of the doors and the windows within the property. Those are just examples. Then you move on to the mechanics of the house, the electrical, and then there's the plumbing, and there's HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And then finally there's the foundation, which you evaluate both internally and externally. So let me go ahead and move on to the video of me walking through this property today that's for sale currently, and going through those 7 components and going through them in detail. And let me show you what I mean by a DIY home inspection. Okay, so here's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house for sale here in Orlando. And in your DIY home inspection, starting from the top down, you want to start with the roof. That's one way to do it. Start with the roof. From here, can't get a great visual. As you can see, it's pretty flat roof. Sometimes in other houses, like you can look next door, there's kind of a pitch to the roof, so you can get a better idea. But this house, pretty flat. So when you can't get a great visual, one other thing you can do is you could go onto the public record and you can look at the permit history, see if a permit was pulled for a roof replacement or partial replacement. So that's something that you can do. You could also look at Google Maps and look at the picture from above, but you never know, how old that picture is. So as you're looking at the roof, if you can get a visual, you want to look at any missing shingles, you want to look at any discoloration in the roof, any curling of the roof or areas of sinking. Let's see, areas of mold. If there's any uneven layers of the shingles, for example, could be a sign of patchwork. You want to know what that's all about, and try to compare that to to the seller's disclosure that you're provided. You also want to look up above at the gutters. Just want to make sure that this one you don't see any gutters, but you always want to look at the gutters to make sure that they're intact and they look clean, not much mold, mildew. You look at the soffits, the paneling, whether it's wood or whatever. That's right underneath the top layer of the roof, the soffits, the fascia. Look at those layers. And also sometimes you can get an idea of any nails, heads that are protruding. That's another indication of some previous roof issues. So things to look at in the roof. Continuing on the exterior of the property, you want to take a look at several things. The first thing is, one of the things is look at the chimney, which we'll look at on the back side of this property. But you want to look at things like wall cracks or any stains, any vegetation, trees or branches that are close to the house. Some other things you want to look at are any cracks in the steps or the patio. So you can see some cracking there. Now, is that a question of settling or just a fault in the way they develop the patio or the steps? Just want to look around for any things like that would cause any red flags. Also, let's take a close look at the exterior. You want to look at the windows. Try to get a good idea of the window frames. Do they look new? If they do not look new, because these look pretty new, this house was pretty well updated recently. But if they do not look new, then you want to see if they look intact and see if the glass is intact. Some houses have shutters. You want to look at that. So here's another look in the exterior. So pretty new looking windows. Okay. While you're in the front still, you can look at the door. How new does that look? Does it look like it's well fitted? Sometimes as you look at these doors, you want to make sure that the frames are intact as well. You also want to look at any fences that they have. This one does not have a fence, but as you can see, it has a little bit of a patio here. Just look for any signs of any cracks or any vegetation on them. This one looks pretty well built. You mentioned trees. You want to see if there's any trees. Like this one is in front of the house, but it's not very close to the house, and you don't see tree branches that are hanging onto the house itself or touching the house. That's the kind of thing you want to look for. When you see a lot of trees, especially old trees, maple trees around the house, close to them, then you always have to think about termites and that type of issue. So here's another good look at the exterior here. So let's go ahead and look at the back part of the house and review that exterior. This house actually has an interesting looking little pond here. It's like duckweed or algae or something. Interesting. So, okay, let's look at the back of the house. Okay, so here we are at the back of the house, and you want to look to see if the house has a chimney. You want to just get an idea of, is the chimney straight? Does it look like there's anything missing? Any external parts? If it's brick, are there missing brick? This one looks pretty well intact. Also, as you walk around the exterior, it's good to keep an eye out for any areas of standing water, especially if you have a lot of grass and dirt around the house. If there's standing water, sometimes that could be indicative of things like sinkholes. You want to be worried about that. As I mentioned, you want to look at the fences. You want to look at the integrity of the fence. Looks like in this one, for example, pretty old fence, and a couple of the pieces have been replaced. But you want to look at the integrity of the fence. Some of the houses we looked at, the fence looks like it's about to collapse, and some of them, sure enough, did collapse after we purchased it. So you want to look at that, and that has a lot to do with part of your negotiation for the pricing of the property. You also want to look at any signs of any crawl space. Even though the listing says it's a slab foundation, for example, you just want to make sure, look for any signs of a crawl space, any holes, any areas that can get water intrusion or pests. As you can see, this one doesn't have any. But you also want to look for any gaps or any other opening under the foundation. So again, this one doesn't have it, but that's the kind of thing to look for as you walk around the exterior. This house also has a pool here, so if you're looking at a property that has a pool, then you also want to take a look at the integrity of the pool and how the clarity, and you get an idea of how much if you're going to need to have the pool cleaned out. We bought a property that had a really bad looking pool, and we took a lot of work, but made it look really nice and actually swimmable. So if you have an opportunity, you can take a look at the pool pump and all the mechanics that are involved, and just look for any signs of any obvious damage or anything that needs replacing. Also in the exterior, you want to look at any other structures, like this shed, for example, or if there's a garage that's detached. In this house, the garage is attached, but you want to open any shed and take a look at just the interior and see if there's any signs of any major damage, or another thing to look at is any signs of any rot or mold or pest damage, because if you see that in one of the extra structures like this, it might be an indication that there might have been a similar issue in the primary house itself. So always something to look at and take into consideration. So let's go ahead and take a look at the let's go back to the front of the house and then take a look at the inside of the property. Okay, now we're back at the front of the house, so let's look at the interior. Okay, so a little dark in here. You get that autofocus. There you go. All right, so in the interior, after you've looked at the layout of the property and you decide that it's worth taking a closer look, then you can look at the details on the DIY home inspection. So first, you want to make sure you look at all the windows, take a look at every single window, and you should take the time to open up every single window as well. Some of the older houses, for example, who don't have new windows in them like this, some previous owners will paint the windows shut, and I don't know, for aesthetic reasons or whatever, but nonetheless they paint them shut, and that will that can cause a problem, because then you have no way of escape in the event of a fire or something. So you always want to look at every single window, open them all up. You want to make sure you look at every single door as well. So it's a little easier for this house because it's well updated, but you want to look at every single door, open up all the doors, and not just the integrity of the door, but looking at the door frame. And if you find that the door is not fitting into the door frame well, that's a lot of times that could be a hint that there's been some type of settling of the house, or maybe even foundational issues. So you always want to be looking at the doors and the windows and the frames for both. Let's see, as you walk through the house or the property, you want to look at all the walls, especially from top to bottom. You want to look for any signs of any unusual stains or weird smells, indications of mildew. You also want to make sure that you are looking for any signs of exposure of the foundation. Again, this house was recently updated, but in older houses it becomes a little bit more obvious. You want to look for that because you want to make sure you have a watertight property with fixtures. You want to do simple things. You want to make sure that fixtures like this are well attached, that kind of thing. You want to make sure that, like I said earlier, any signs of any mildew, especially in the bathroom, anywhere near water. Oops, focus went out there. It's a little bit dark in here, I guess. Okay. So the other thing you want to look at is for every room, you certainly want to make sure that you have you're looking at every single corner. You're looking for any signs of stains or water damage or anything like that. So those are things to look out for. Let's go into the kitchen. In the kitchen, you want to open up all the cabinets, all the drawers, make sure that they all latch, they all close and open appropriately. And you want to make sure that if there's a fireplace, a chimney, then looking at the masonry, like in this property, you see these bricks here, just trying to get an idea to make sure that the masonry is all in place, there's nothing missing. If it's been painted, how the paint looks, and then any signs of any stains around the fireplace. Because if you see stains, then you have a red flag that there may have been some type of backdraft, some type of issue with the fireplace. So let me turn the light on. There you go. So here you can see they did a nice job with the paint here. Very nice job. Nice mantle. But you want to look around the fireplace, look for any signs of stains, especially in a house that might be sold as is, and they have not updated it a lot. It's a lot easier to see those types of things. Okay, so we looked at the exterior and the interior. Let's go into the plumbing. Again, this is all home inspection type stuff that you as the investor can do. Do it yourself, because you may not have the opportunity to get a professional complete home inspection. So these are the key things. Next thing is plumbing. So in plumbing, you want to make sure that all the faucets work and all the toilets flush. You want to do that in every single bathroom. And another thing you want to do is under the vanity, you want to get down on your hands and knees, and it's kind of dark, but you can see it. Look under the vanity, look at the type of piping, PVC piping, or what it could be, and also look for any signs of stains. It's kind of hard because of the wood is dark color, but any kinds of stains under the vanity is something to watch out for. Again, indicative of potential for a leak in the past or current. You also want to sorry, it's really blurry in here, but you get the idea. Whoops. see if I can get that unblurry. You get the idea. You want to check the water pressure. You want to check the water pressure of the shower in every bathroom that you have in the property to determine if there's any need for any plumbing. Okay, sorry for the autofocus not being as fast as I had hoped, but that's okay. Also for the plumbing, you want to when you're in the bathroom, you want to look for stains around the toilet and around any sinks, and same thing with the sink here. You want to check what kind of piping you have and look for signs of any stains or mildew underneath. Turn on every faucet, which I'm turning this on and it's not working. So see, you got to turn on every faucet, and you want to ask questions if something is not turning on. So looks like a really nice new fancy faucet there. So anyway, looking around for any stains around the kitchen sink. If you don't have a property with nice new countertops like this, if it's an older house, then you want to look around for any integrity issues and potential signs of water damage as well. So that's the plumbing. So the next thing is the electrical. In the electrical, you want to look to get an idea of all the outlets that you have in every room. And there are certain outlets that have to be certified outlets. They're grounded. You have to have that. And you want to check that, especially in the kitchen, but also all the rooms. You want to make sure that in every room that you look in, that there are working lights, like in this room, for example. And look around for any type of exposed wiring anywhere. And make sure that all the appliances are in functional working order. Like this, you could see the blinking light there for the microwave. And you just want to look at the all the appliances. No refrigerator here to look at, so if there was one, we would open it up to make sure it was on and cool. The other thing to do that I think a lot of people forget is to take a look at the actual circuit breaker. So let's come on here, let me turn on the light, maybe focus will be better. Yeah, so taking a look at the circuit breaker is a good idea. The main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you don't have one of those old Federal Pacific circuit breakers or electrical boxes, because those have a high risk of dangerous issues with them, causing fires, etc. So you just want to make sure it's not Federal Pacific. Most new houses and updated houses will look like this. It's just a new panel. So that's something to look at. Because if it is Federal Pacific, that's the kind of thing that insurance companies will look at and say, "Ooh, we're not gonna cover that property because of that risk." So it's important to look at that. Okay, so that is an overview of the electrical. Okay, so looking at the HVAC inspection, home inspection, DIY. The first thing to do for looking at the air conditioning is, first of all, you want to know what kind of air conditioning it is. Is it a centralized air conditioning, or do they have wall units, or some people used to call them swamp coolers? In this case, it's a centralized AC unit, and you want to start, the easiest way to start is to look at the external unit. Get an idea of the name brand, because some brands are definitely better than others, and get an idea of how old the unit is. Was it newly updated or not? So in this case, you can see that it's very much an old unit. Sometimes there's a sticker on there that has the actual date, that the year that the unit was placed, so that gives you a better idea. So you want to get an idea of how old the unit is. And also you want to look to make sure that the unit has some type of a foundation like this, a slab foundation, and it needs to have clearance around the foundation, clearance from any vegetation, at least 2 feet around. And if there is vegetation, it needs to be no higher than the height of that slab. So as you can see, that's probably why they use this these rocks and pebbles instead of any type of grass. See, the grass is starting over here. So that's the external unit, things to look out for. And let's go ahead back inside and finish up our DIY inspection of the HVAC. So in every room of the house, for a centralized AC unit, you want to get an idea of the vents, how many vents there are, do the number of vents make sense for the size of the room. For example, this room, you can see 2 vents there. And in this front big room, you can see 2 right over there too. So you want to look at every single room and look at the number of vents. Make sure that they look like they are in good working order. In the kitchen, if you have a traditional stove, oven, you also want to take a look at any kind of exhaust fan that's placed. This one, we don't have one in this one, but you want to look for an exhaust fan in the kitchen, as well as all the vents in the bathrooms. One other thing when it comes to heating, it's kind of heating slash plumbing, is you want to make sure you take a look at the hot water heater. Let's go back into the garage. So if you find yourself doing a lot of back and forth, then you're on the right track, because you should be doing that. So when you're looking at this again, you look at the water heater, look at the size of the water heater, how many gallons, and is it appropriate for a house, for the property you're looking at. You can also look at this, and you can look at the model, and it often tells you the year that was placed, some energy guide there. You want to take a look that overall it looks like it's been installed correctly, and that you have a release a vent, kind of a release pipe for overflow. So that's part of the heating and plumbing. Another thing to look at is the foundation. We talked about that from the outside. From the inside, you could do the golf ball test or tennis ball test, where you put it on the ground and see which way it rolls. If it rolls, I don't have any of those right now, but I have a water bottle. So I'm gonna put the water bottle this way, and I'm gonna see if it rolls. This is not as good as a slick golf ball, but you get the idea. It's not rolling there. And then when I rotate it 90 degrees, so I can get the east-west, as you can see, it's also not moving. So kind of a crude test, but it gives you the idea if you are looking at a foundational issue. So thanks for watching this video on DIY home inspections. Definitely leave a comment and a like in the video if you like the content. I appreciate if you subscribe and hit the notification bell in order to get future videos. We'll see you on the next one.